Hello everyone and welcome back to the Pastor's Log. Today we're going to be doing something a little different, something that I usually don't do in a Pastor's Log. We're not going to be talking about a mini sermon today. However, we are going to be talking about taking notes during sermons. Now, I know a lot of you just went click, that sounds really boring, but it's really not. I very much enjoy taking notes during sermons, seminars, lectures, whatnot on the Bible and biblical topics. I always have a notebook with me. I just wanted to show you guys during the course of the time that I started taking notes, I've filled each of these up. Actually, this brown one here in the middle is my current notebook. I'm almost about halfway through that one, but I filled the other two up. When I first started taking notes, I just used a simple composition notebook, and I doubled this as my personal journal too. And I ended up just really getting out personal journaling, which I really need to get back into. But I carried on with the note-taking. So I got something a little nicer, and I bought this journal from Walmart. I believe this ran me about $8, and this whole thing's falling apart. This whole thing's really filled with notes. I got speakers in my journals. Dr. Elmer Towns, Liberty University, Jerry Falwell. I got Donald Trump in my notebooks. I don't just journal pastors. I take notes on any person who is very prominent, who I can learn something from. I got John Maxwell in some of my notebooks. I've seen him speak several times. Regardless of that, this is my current notebook, just a little fancier. I like sticking with something like this. It's just, I don't know, the pages are thick, they don't bleed through. I like writing everything in pen for the most part. That way it doesn't fade over time. Because I've had these for about 3-4 years now. And you can see I haven't taken a lot of notes in 3 to 4 years. I really need to work on that. I myself am trying to improve on this. That's one of the reasons why I'm making this video. So, why do we take notes? Concentration. I don't know if you've ever, as I've preached in the past, and even when I was a Boy Scout instructor, I would notice that people just sometimes, there are those who are just paying attention, and then there are those who are just, just out there sleeping or doing the little head nod. And it's always comical to watch, especially when you're the speaker. But yeah, it really helps your concentration. If you lose your concentration, you can just refer back to the last thing you wrote, and you can say, oh, that's what we were talking about. I know exactly where we're at. Let's go on with this sermon. I'm ready to listen. Also, another reason we take notes is to refer back. Refer back to what we have learned. I don't know how many times I have pulled out specifically this notebook right here. From the first entry in this notebook was 2010, May 26, 2010. I went to a revival service at the Lakeview Church of God. Happens to be where I'm going to be doing my internship at. If you haven't been watching the vlog, I'm really excited about that. Pastor Nick's, he's an awesome pastor, and I can't wait to work with Nick. So, if you're ever in the Stoneboro, Sandy Lake area in Pennsylvania, stop by and see us. But yeah, refer back. I refer back to these when I write my sermons. I don't steal sermons from other people word for word. I might hear an example that they say, and I might jot it down because I wouldn't have thought of that example otherwise, or they just have a really insightful view on something. Reflection. I like to read through all my journals at least once a year, maybe twice. Every page. Some pages I skip over because I don't take a lot of notes sometimes. There are sermons I'll write down one thing on an entire page, and that'll be it, and I'll just go to the next page for the next sermon. And then there are other sermons that I write 4 or 5 pages of notes on. But reflection. I love going back through these, seeing why I learned, relearning why I learned. And also, I get to really track my progress. As I take notes and journal and whatnot, I get to see where I've come dealing with events in my life such as suicide, and I get to see where my mindset was back here, what I really took notes on, what my focuses were back here, all the way up until this journal here, where my focus has completely changed. I'm now even switched majors into the pastoral leadership. I'm graduating. What's my mindset like? I'm a 5-year super senior at Liberty University, so that's really awesome. So concentration is the first thing we take notes for. Help us concentrate during a sermon. We get to refer back to our notes when we need them, and we get to reflect on them. And then finally, the fourth reason we take notes is to track our progress. Now, there are plenty more reasons that I take notes, and why you should too. I didn't list them all there. If I can speak today, that'd be wonderful. So how do we take notes? That's the big question. Right now, I just have to apologize if this video is running a little long. I actually intended to be under 6 minutes, and I'm looking at my timer and realize that I'm not even halfway through this video. I'm already at 6 minutes and 22 seconds according to my clock. But how do we take notes? Something I do, I'll just grab this one here. You can see my handwriting is hard for you guys to read. I just write in this corner up here, date, and up here where my thumb is, who is speaking. And I didn't write it here, but I usually write a location where I heard them at. Especially if they are like the pastor of a church and I'm visiting at their church. I may want to go back and hear them again, or call them and ask them a question. That one was Ben Gutierrez, the one I just showed you there. He's a professor at Liberty University. He has his doctorate, I believe. Very, very excellent speaker. He's probably my favorite speaker of anyone I've ever heard. So, Ben Gutierrez, awesome guy. I've gotten to meet him a couple times. I got to sit in his office and speak with him. So date, speaker, and location. What else do I put in my notes? Well, as the speaker, and I'm using speaker because I take notes from like Donald Trump, who is not a pastor. I didn't know if you knew that. There's some free education. Speaker, as major points. I take notes on the major points. So especially, it's really easy if he has bullet points and he's saying, I got 3 points to the book of Acts that you guys should know. And I'm like, okay, what are those 3 points? I know I have to write down at least 3 things in my notebook. Sometimes pastors and speakers don't do that, and you kind of have to pick out their points. Especially if they repeat something. I always write that down. That's always a red light for me. It stands out. They repeated it. It must be important. So, date, speaker, location. Major points. Did you notice I'm repeating? You should be taking notes. What stands out to me, or what speaks to me? Especially whether I'm growing my business. I do own a business on the side here. Whether I'm growing my business or I'm taking notes from my pastor. If something speaks to me saying, this is what I need to be doing, this is where I'm falling short in my spiritual life, or I just didn't know that and I want to learn more about that, I just write that down. And fourthly, I take notes specifically when I'm hearing somebody speak. An idea will flood into my head, and it won't be related to the sermon, it won't be related to what the speaker's saying. And I'll just put a PN next to it, see if I can find any like that. And then that stands for personal note. It just tells me it's not involved in the sermon or the notes I'm taking. And I'll just write down what the personal note is. Sometimes it'll be a page long, but it'll be usually really insightful. I used to do that all the time. Actually, before I used the notebook, I'd write personal notes on my arm. I wrote an entire lesson plan one time on my arm. I used to be a prayer leader here at Liberty University a couple years back, and I just write my entire lesson on my arm and not get my arm wet for the rest of the day. Just ideas would just flood in, a little tidbit here and tidbit there. Something that I absolutely, this is very important. If you get nothing out of this, write this down. That means write this down. When somebody says write something down, you should take a note on it. Write this down. You want to regularly deposit small amounts of information, whether that be into a notebook or into your mind. Probably into a notebook and your mind. Regularly deposit small amounts of information so that one day you can take out a large withdrawal. So regularly make small deposits so that one day you can make a large withdrawal. That's really turning my whole life around as far as education and taking notes and wanting to learn more about God and grow spiritually and all these things. So finally, we're just going to wrap up here with the question, will I ever actually use all of these hours and days and whatnot of notes that I've taken? Not at first. When you first start out, it's like a cursor looking on a blank page on a Word document. There's nothing there. It's a blank page, first page on a notebook. And it's really discouraging, especially when you finish a notebook and you have to start a new one. Another blank page at the very beginning. I like being right in the middle or at the end because I feel like I've accomplished, taking notes. It's very rewarding when you finish a notebook and then you have to start a new one. And you're like, man, a long ways to go. But yeah, you will actually use them. I refer back to these all the time for my sermons. When I'm doing my daily devotions, I'll refer back to my notebooks. If I remember, John Maxwell preached on Acts 16. I don't know if he actually did preach on Acts 16 ever. I'm sure he has. But I don't know what he preached on when I recorded. I'm just throwing that verse out there. But I'll go back to that and I'll just be like, what did he say to that? And I can easily refer back to that. And having my notebooks in chronological order, I remember that he was here, a couple years ago, so I'm not in this brown book. I'm either in this book, right here, probably this book right here. So, anyway, I hope that you've learned a lot from me about note-taking, the importance of note-taking, how you should take notes, at least how I take notes. I'm sure a lot of people might tell you differently. This really is, again, this pastor's log is kind of just out there a little bit as far as getting away from what we normally do. I hope to get you some regular mini sermons back here in the near future. I got some great ideas that I'm cooking up. Maybe I shouldn't have used that term. I got some great ideas that are brewing in my head here about what I am learning in my devotions. I'm actually reading through Luke 16. Anyway, so thank you for watching, guys. Keep on being great.